Morning, everybody. Yes, there's a great build up there in that introduction. So yes, my career started off at the London College of Printing, and the technology I learned there was made redundant whilst a student with the introduction of computers, and then joined this company printing banknotes, and I've kept on printing ever since. I've got presses here at home in Cambridge and a small studio just north of Ely on the river, which is very nice. My main job with the university was Director of the Career Service, as you've heard, but I was also fingered to become one of the university's senior proctors. So I was a senior proctor for 3 years, and I'm just starting my 6th year as a senior proctor, doing a lot of the ceremonial work in the Senate House with degree ceremonies and so on. And for those of you who visit the Senate House, you will notice some new posters around there about social distancing, and they were produced on my press, so please admire those. So the printing comes in very useful. What I'd like to do over the next 45 minutes or so is just to talk you through some designs of lino cutting, and then, as Amanda was saying, just do some practical demonstrations of how to cut a lino block and how to print them without the need for an expensive press. The beauty of lino cutting is that it is a very cheap hobby. You can acquire all the equipment online for about £20. You can buy a pack of cards like this. So you've got 100 cards with 100 envelopes for about £6. So one's able to produce a lot of cards in bulk relatively quickly, and some of the designs can be striking even for a complete beginner. It doesn't create much mess. You don't need much room to do it, and it's a wonderful hobby, a little like knitting or pottery. Your mind is so involved in cutting lino that you forget all the woes and troubles of the world as you do it. When I said it doesn't make much mess, one tip here is to wear a white shirt or a white blouse, and therefore you make sure that your fingers are absolutely clean of any ink as you go through the printing process. So what I like to do now is just share my screen and just show you a few examples of lino cuts to show you the sorts of things that can be done. So here we go. I hope this works. So you should be seeing a picture of the Senate House now. This is one that I did a couple of months ago now, and it's quite a large block there. Just another example of my work here is a piece by Eric Gill. It's a straightforward copy. One's allowed to copy artists' work if they've been dead for 70 years without infringing copyright. This is one I did of Paul Tortelier, the cellist, and by printing with black ink onto a coloured paper, you can get quite a striking effect. And this little one here is of our cat, Bella. So they're just a few examples of my work, and I'll stop blowing my own trumpet now and show you some other work. Here we have a lovely illustration that was done. So the block of lino, you can see the square shape there. And what we're doing here is you think about lino as almost a blackboard. And so the white lines here are where you have cut the lino. The cuts do not attract the ink, therefore no ink goes onto the paper, but the image appears as white on black. Another example here was done by someone on one of my recent lino cutting classes of a lovely zebra. And again, very easy to cut. It's no great skill required in cutting that. The art comes in getting a good design, lots of contrast. This one I particularly love, the silver birch trees, and the bark has been beautifully done here with a series of little snips away at the lino, creating that bark, and then just by dragging the blade across the lino, you get this cacophony of branches appearing against the dark sky. This one here, a lovely woolly sheep, and again you can see the way that the person has cut the lino with these rapid little ticks into the lino to create that woolly feel of the sheep, and you feel you can go and stroke the sheep, and it's a lovely woolly furry finish. Here a sailing ship with the seas, and you can see the cuts on the waves which illustrate the movement of the waves and the dark sky. Again, very easy to do. It doesn't require a lot of skill to produce an image like this. It's the thought that goes into the designs beforehand. Here's another one from one of my classes I've done. This is a student at St. Edmund's. I was running classes for our students just to take their minds off exams and things. And here they've cut a lovely sun. A little rabbit. And again, the cuts of the blade, you can see them going into the lino there, give that impression of the fur of the bunny rabbit. A girl in a gale with a blown out umbrella. And again, the cuts of the lino depict the rain coming down, the wind and the movement there as the wind blasts away. I'm just showing you this one to show you all the different ways of cutting a sky, all the different techniques there used in one image. We've got up in the top left-hand corner the dark clouds. We've got here the lino completely cut away with the white clouds, the horizontal stripes, sorry, the vertical stripes of the smoke, and similarly with the waves. It's all very, this is quite an accomplished artist, but different ways of cutting produce different images when printed. The beach huts at Southwold, and again, the planks just very easily depicted by the horizontal lines and the lines of the walkway outside and the random sand dunes behind. Here we have some work of Sybil Andrews. She was a very famous lino cutter from the 1920s. Very, very simple geometric design, but here we have the three wise men on their camels beneath the star with the shadows on the sand. So very simple geometric shapes, but a striking image. Another one here of the baby Jesus in the manger with the wise men. So just 3 or 4 shapes immediately depicting a wise man, some very simple shapes there depicting the oxen around the stable. And I love this one, Siamese kittens. Again, just a very, very few marks to depict a Siamese kitten's face, but immediately you know that's a Siamese kitten. So again, an example of something fairly easy to cut. You need a steady hand and a sharp blade, but no more than that. But the thought has gone into the design. Dog leaping off the page here, the ears bursting through the boundaries, the borders of the card. It feels it's jumping up and actually going to lick your face. And you can see the lovely cuts here depicting all the fur just by going in the same direction. So a little cut of a blade represents a piece of fur. This is a rather sweet little robin, again cut by one of my students at St. Edmund's. And what she's done is actually add some color. So you are able to print a black and white image, and then with watercolor or felt tip pens, just add a little bit of color, and immediately it brings a bit of life in. And you can see some of the green she's put in here, and the pinks and the robin redbreast there. A bit more sophisticated now, but that was a black and white lino print using black ink, and the artist has again applied a watercolor wash on top just to add some color there. You can actually add color to your blocks. So here we see one lino block with 2, I don't know what they are, I think they're foxes, aren't they? Having a little kiss, and the little heart shape there is a separate cut, but that's been put, red ink has been put onto that, and that's the printed image there, just showing you you roller it out in black, but you add the little red heart, and when you print it once, you get the image coming out there. Here's another striking use of color. We're getting a bit more sophisticated now by bringing in color. But the little blob of orange, the little orange hut there, and all the snow, this Norwegian landscape. So the image has been created by cutting away so much and leaving so little, striking there. This is one of my lino cuts, and what you're looking at there is a photograph. And it's a photograph taken by Martin Bond, who, I don't know if any of you know the daily pictures he puts on his Facebook page of two swans. And I saw that photograph and I thought, gosh, that would make a lovely lino cut. And so here I am chipping out the swans. This is the grey image. And there you can see it printed on a plain bit of paper in grey with the orange beaks. And then what I did was to cut a block, which was the black, and print that over the grey and the orange. And that's the lino cut you're looking at now, rather than the photograph. And you have to be very careful to make sure that the orange of the beak lines up with the black shape of the beak when you come to print it to get it the registration. But again, no great skill. It was just the thinking about the design and the patience to cut it. Here we have a pussycat, and we're getting into more advanced lino cutting techniques now. And this is what's known as a sacrificial lino cut. So the artist would have cut one block, which was the shape of the cat, and printed it once in a very light grey ink. And you can see the light grey here, and there's a little bit of light grey there. And the whole cat shape would have been light grey. They then take the same block, chisel away a little bit more, and print a mid-grey on top of the light grey. And here you can see some of the mid-grey colours. When they've done that, they take the block, chisel it away again, and print the darkest greys. And put the dark grey on top of the mid-grey, which is on top of the light grey. And each time the block is being sacrificed, it's being chiseled away each time. You can't go back. There's no going back. You have to print 20 of your light greys, and then you print 20 of your mid-greys, and then 20 of your dark greys. You cannot restore the lino block, which is why it's called sacrificial. And here we have another sacrificial printing. So a very light grey was the first image, and then another block was used for a very light green, and then it was chiseled down, the grey was chiseled down for mid-grey, chiseled down again to get the dark grey and the dark green. And when they're all on top of each other, you get that most striking image. But as I said, it's quite a risky process because there's just no going back. For those of you who haven't bought your kit, you can buy something like this. I think it's about £7, but you get a variety of blades there that you can use. Or you can get a complete kit. So you get a roller, you get pieces of lino, you get your blades, you get a tube of ink, you get a little thing for mixing your ink on and rollering it out. So if you want to enter this hobby, you can do so very, very cheaply. So what I've shown you then is just some ideas, and I hope that the examples I've given you were all by total beginners. So images like this one was done by someone who hadn't cut lino before, and this one, beautiful flowers. And here we have some, I think they're hostas, is that right? The plant hostas. And this is one that my daughter did of a whale in the sea there. And again, I think the last time she picked up some lino cutting tools was when she was in primary school. This one's quite interesting because what she did is she cut out the sea and the whale into one piece of lino, a little bit like this, and then with a very sharp knife, cut out the whale. So it was a separate piece of lino. And so she was able to ink up the surrounding sea in blue ink up the separate whale in black, and then put the two together like a jigsaw, and print it once so that the black and the blue were printed at the same time. Are you all with me on that? It's quite a cunning way to make sure that you don't get the ink smudged. You're just two separate pieces of lino. So there we have it, a brief chat about lino designs. What I'd like to do now is just spend a little bit of time looking at the clock, just talking to you about cutting lino. But before I do that, it's how do I get this piece of plain lino and get an image onto that. So the best way of doing this is to do a drawing on a piece of paper with a thick black felt tip pen, and then you're able to lay that on top of the lino with a bit of tracing paper, and with a biro, you can go round it, or sorry, a piece of carbon paper, you can go round it and it'll leave the carbon image on the lino block so that you're able to cut away. The artists in the past would actually take their image, drawing on a paper, and run a candle underneath the paper, and that would put soot onto the underside of the paper. So when they came to draw around the piece of paper, it would leave a soot mark on the block of lino. A biro works very well, so you can get a biro or a felt tip pen and draw your image straight onto the block, so you know what you're going to cut away and what you leave behind. Because with lino, if you cut the wrong bit out, that's it, you've got to start again. So a piece of a biro will work. For the pictures of the swan I showed you, I actually cheated there, and you're welcome to cheat as well. And by cheat, what I mean is that I printed the image using a laser printer, black laser printed image, and then got the piece of paper with the laser printer on it, laser printing, and laid it on the lino. And then with a hot iron, you can iron the back of the paper, and it melts the laser ink onto the lino. You pull the paper off, and there you have got your image beautifully laid out onto the piece of lino, ready to start cutting it. It's a bit of a cheat. You don't spend hours drawing, you're just running an iron quickly over the back of a piece of paper, but it deposits that ink onto the lino, allowing you to cut it. So when you've then got your image onto the lino, you will need to cut it. And to do this, you'll need a set of tools. These are the ones I use. This is manufactured in Germany. You get a nice little box here. That's the name if you want to make a note of it. I'm sure we can get that out on a Facebook group later. And in the box, you've got your tools, and it consists of a wooden handle and a variety of different sized blades. So some very thick ones for cutting deep, wide grooves, and some much finer V-shaped ones for cutting smaller grooves, and a smaller groove will give you a finer line. And you just simply press it into the end of the tool. And you also get this little wooden stick here, and this, you push up the back of the handle and it pops the blade out for you. So for cutting the lino, always cut away from yourself, never towards yourself. So if it slips, you don't stab one of your arteries, it just glides off and ruins the lovely table surface you've been working on. And for those of you with a long memory, think about aeroplanes coming into land. You don't land like that. You just gently come in at a very gentle angle, and it should just very carefully give you a nice little, can you see the piece of lino coming off there? That's it. And there you will have a cut in the lino. And with a V-shaped tool, the harder you press, the deeper you go, you get a deeper cut, and a deeper cut means a wider cut. And for very fine work, you just gently scrape away and you can get those different effects with your blade. So very easy to do. This is a little piece of lino. So if you do start doing this, just start practicing on a small piece of lino first, and you can get different effects with your tools. You don't need to spend a lot of money on sophisticated tools. As I said, a little set like this will be £7 or £8 and will last a long time. Then when you've cut your block, you should end up with something like this. And this is the block of the zebra that I showed you earlier on. So there's the zebra, and there's the block that was used to print it. And this was done by Landy Gear, a colleague of mine and a good friend who attended one of my classes not long ago. So the next question is, when you've finished cutting your block, how do I print it? Well, again, you don't need a great expensive press to do this. You can do this with the minimal kits, a roller and some ink and a piece of glass. Glass is good for rolling the ink out on. It's nice and smooth, easy to clean. And what I'm going to do now is just show you how to print a card like that without a press. And I'll just twiddle my computer around with the C. So there we have the piece of glass. And here we have my little box of roller and some ink. I use oil-based ink, but you can use water-based ink. It's just as good. And then a blob about the size, about 2 or 3 baked beans size blobs is usually enough. And then with the roller, just gently roll it out. And what you do is you use your ears now, and it should sound a little bit like frying bacon. And that probably means you've got enough ink there. When you're rolling it out, keep lifting the roller, and that way it makes sure that it gives a nice even layer of ink onto the piece of glass. Then when you've got your ink ready, it's a good idea just to get a board to make sure you don't ruin the table surface. And you get your block, which I've now lost. If anyone sees the block, give me a shout. There we are. There's the block. And with the roller, just give it a nice gentle ink. Don't press too hard when you're inking it, because that'll push the ink into the cuts and will detract from the quality of your lino print. So there we have the block already inked up. And now for the next crucial bit of equipment, I'll just be back in a moment. You need a spoon. And any old spoon will do. I've just chosen a nice soup spoon here. And when you lay your paper down, just drop it and press it gently with your fingers, and the ink on the block should keep the paper from moving about. Then with your spoon, start rubbing the back. And as you rub the back, you keep your fingers pressed down hard. On the other side, you're not rubbing, just to make sure the paper doesn't move. If the paper moves, you get a horrible blurred image. What you're able to do is just lift the paper whilst pressing down one side. You can lift the corner and have a little look, and you're able to see, oh no, I've missed a few bits. I just need to go over that again. And then when you think you've done one side, press it over and do the other. Check that you've done it. Nope, a little bit more down this end. And then, crossing your fingers, we have the print. And depending on how long you've got, you could be doing that for a couple of hours and produce 40 or 50 Christmas cards, birthday cards, or whatever. It's a great way to produce things for friends, family, and so on. Now, I was just thinking what else we need to do. If you get into this hobby, then please, you can look at acquiring a press. The beauty of a printing press, it's a large, I'll just show you a quick screen share, one moment. That's a photograph of my press. So they're known as a nipping press or a book press. They were used by bookbinders, but they produce lino-cut prints beautifully. But they're just getting more and more expensive. I got mine for £30 about 10 years ago, and they're now selling on eBay for over £200. But who knows, if you want to produce a lot of cards, then it can be worthwhile investing in one of those presses. The other thing, if the hobby does take off, is just investing in a very, very fine cutting tool. So this one here, it is quite expensive. It's about £15 or so, but it's an incredibly fine tool for cutting very, very fine white lines into your block. So there you have it, lino cutting. A lovely hobby, a hobby that's very cheap to do. It can be very engrossing, and I hope I've illustrated that some of the prints I've shown you, you do not need to be an accomplished artist to do this. You don't need a huge studio. You don't need a lot of money. You just need a little bit of time, a little bit of creative flair, and it's a great thing to do.